Welcome to the Pregnancy Help Podcast. I'm Christine Grimmett, and I hope you were able to join us for the Part 1 episode that was published last week, where we celebrated 10 years of Pregnancy Help News by telling the story of where it all began. And it was a pleasure to have Jor-El Godsey, Jay Hobbs, and Kirk Walden with us to tell that story and to highlight the impact of those first few years of Pregnancy Help News. And in this episode, we again have Jor-El Godsey, president of Heartbeat International, along with Andrea Trudden, vice president of communications and marketing, and Lisa Bourne, the managing editor of Pregnancy Help News. And there have been some really monumental moments in pregnancy help in these past few years, and Pregnancy Help News has been there to cover it. 10 years was really just the beginning, so I'm going to turn things on over to Jor-El to take listeners to where we are now and where Pregnancy Help News continues to move and impact the movement.
Thanks, Christine. We had quite the adventure talking about those early years, the very early ones with Jay and Kirk as they were managing that and walking through building that kind of opportunity to speak about various things happening. One of the big things we talked about was what became NIFLA v. Becerra, a case that came out of California. Tons of writing. We talked at length about that. So I want to kind of pick up from there because that lands in 2018. We celebrate that. We're excited about the victory that was gained for the pregnancy help movement, which we were able to talk about. But that was also 2018 was also the year that Andrea stepped back into the role as director of communications. She had stepped away for a few years to spend time with her kids, and then jumped back in, took over from Jay from that. And we also had Katie Franklin was our editor. She had been a writer for us. She was with us from Ohio Right to Life, and kind of carried us from Jay to our new managing editor, Lisa Bourne, who joined us in late 2019, which we were very grateful for a number of reasons. One of which we didn't even know would be a reason, which was COVID. So we had her on board, rocking and rolling with Pregnancy Help News, kind of really taking the reins of that. And so there's been a ton. So we really want to talk about, well, where are we now? But from 2019 till now has been a lot of things happening. So what are some of the landmark stories that we've been able to cover since then?
Well, NIFLA v. Becerra, as you referenced, Jor-El, really kind of set the stage for pregnancy help to continue doing what it was doing. It freed up centers to work and serve women with their conscience at the forefront. But coming in, none of us could have predicted what had happened with the COVID pandemic. I started a couple months prior to that and was getting up and running when that hit. And it was, as I'm getting my sea legs, if you will, with covering pregnancy help in detail, everybody's kind of getting their own sea legs in the movement for how to function during COVID. So there was a lot going on and a lot to report to that end. And Heartbeat, not the least of which having to pivot with its conference literally at the last minute, as you and Andrea know well. But just being there and being in touch with the centers, it made us all grow because, nothing serves our movement better than being there in person for that woman. But by the same token, we can't always be there in person. So we saw and learned firsthand the value of virtual connection. And the centers really stepped up. And most of them, if I recall correctly, stayed open, almost without missing a beat, and were there for women in person to the degree that they could be, but they also expanded virtually. So we were just blessed and honored to be able to cover all that and really bring that good news to the forefront. So that was kind of the first one out of the gate. A little bit of a big deal.
Yeah. Before we move on to more, because I know we want to get to Dobbs and cover that. Those are also big opportunities for us. I want to give people a kind of a peek behind the scenes. In those early days, it was pretty much Jay and Kirk pounding out a lot of good content. We had Katie as in the background helping us as well, and we had just a few other writers that we have. But today, that's a very different landscape. We've got more than a few, Lisa, that are helping contribute to content.
Correct. When I came in, Katie had been part-time and I was full-time. So I was better able to really focus on that and get, more than doubling the content out the gate. And we have probably 20 writers on a roster right now with maybe 10 that are active. And we're always looking for more writers that have a heart for pregnancy help to contribute. And they're out there. We know they're out there.
As a managing editor, you kind of get the ideas, or you get some possibilities of things to write on, and kind of distribute those amongst those writers. I mean, they also work on stories themselves, but you're kind of passing leads, I guess, is the lingo I'm learning from the journalists. You pass the leads along to some of these writers, and then they chase down the information.
Correct. It's a kind of a hybrid mixture of things. Obviously, there's no shortage of ideas and content possibilities coming from within Heartbeat, because Heartbeat is right there in contact with all the centers, who are in turn in contact with the clients. So we have all kinds of things coming in through Heartbeat. But I am a news junkie, so I'm constantly watching the news and looking for things, monitoring developments of anything that has anything to do with pregnancy help. And then we allow the writers also to pitch, which is great because it's a diverse group of folks that all have the heart for pregnancy help. Most have a background in pregnancy help, but they all are coming from their respective individual places where they see things, they experience things, they have different experience in their background, and they have different voices. And so it's a great eclectic mix between, kind of a pot that we mix it up and go with, because it's also one of the many ways that the Lord leads this mission, because he brings us the writers and he brings us the stories, and we run with it and just take the message and the mission forth.
Excellent. And Andrea, this is really a work of the communications department. It's a part and parcel of. It's really, it factors into some of our communication planning when we are expecting a big story. We've had that privilege of knowing that there's, okay, this is the Supreme Court's working on this. They normally release our stuff. They wait until the end of June, because we're always dealing with something that's very controversial. So we can anticipate about the time that it's going to happen. And we start planning, and Pregnancy Help News is a part of that. We want to make sure that coverage is going on. Just, can you talk about like how we really involve Pregnancy Help News in the overall communication process for what we believe at Heartbeat is very important things to be talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm sure you guys talked about in episode 1 the fact that a great role in this world is pregnancy help, but the stories weren't being told. So that kind of became the reason why we created that through Heartbeat International. But that does now allow for us to make Pregnancy Help News an essential part of the communications plan whenever we know something is coming, as you alluded to. For example, the Dobbs decision. So we were aware that, of course, a decision is going to happen, pro or con, and we could prepare that way. So we loop, of course, Lisa in very early on to find out what pieces are going to be needed, what quotes do we need to be preparing for, and how do we need to look at this from the various angles for those working in pregnancy help and those who appreciate the work. They are general public, as we refer to them, but they need to be aware because they are curious about the pro-life movement and life in and of itself. So what do we need to get to them? So then we look at the different ways that we can tell the story. Who do we need to connect with? How do we need to frame the story in a way that tells it in the most comprehensive way? So that's when we start tapping into both our internal Heartbeat staff, our friends in the movement, to get the perspectives from the pregnancy centers, from those national partners. And then we start putting together some pieces to be able to launch it. So it's different than being ready with just a press release, because we are doing that in addition to actually equipping Lisa with everything that she needs to communicate it from that news angle. So what we're doing is it's kind of twofold, where it's always an essential part of our communications plan to get to the movement, but then also utilizing some simultaneous pieces for press releases and internal emails, and it's part of our big communications plan. But we are always assured that when big news is coming, that we are meeting, touching base, and getting all of the pieces that are going to be required, such as quotes, strongly tapping into our president of Heartbeat International often for quotes, and as well as key people on our staff when appropriate, or those outside, so that we can share those internally as well and use them both to amplify the message through our internal pieces with our affiliates and external pieces through Pregnancy Help News. It's been a wonderful megaphone for the movement and amplifying those messages, whatever they may be. In this case, Dobbs, but we've had various cases over the years where we get to put out that message.
Yeah, and you're making a really good point about if a local pregnancy help organization is creating their own communications plans, one of the things that should be on their list of, hey, let's make sure Pregnancy Help News knows what's happening here in our community with our big thing that we're doing. Either we talked in the part one about being able to highlight openings of new locations, launching of new mobile units, new services being added, of course, stories about clients being impacted in amazing ways through maternity homes or pregnancy centers. So if there is a communication plan that you're envisioning for something that's happening in your area, that they should definitely include Pregnancy Help News. Keep Lisa on your mind. Make sure you send it to Heartbeat. We definitely want the opportunity to echo and amplify what's happening at pregnancy help organizations locally. So Lisa, as we kind of get back to the landmarks conversation, we moved through COVID, and that was its own adventure in a number of ways, because at that time of course, the abortion clinics were allowed to stay open readily, and we had to make the case that pregnancy centers were essential. And of course, we were doing that. They like you said, most of them didn't miss a beat. They kept going. They kind of rolled with whatever the punches were as far as their state rules about how they could provide services. But we were able to speak to that and really echo that same message about, hey, pregnancy centers are essential. It's essential to help women in their time of need to say yes to the life within them, which was a major issue during COVID. But also during this time frame, as we were kind of coming out of that, was suddenly the state of Mississippi was on the horizon with a bill that they had launched. I think it was a 15-week ban that they launched, which started at the state of Mississippi, thanks to an attorney general there. You saw that happening. We were able to write about that early, and then of course walk with that story all the way up to the Supreme Court.
Well, and we knew that it was likely to come, but we couldn't have predicted the leak coming ahead of time. So we were there ready. To Andrea's point, we prepare as well as we can, but then we also have to roll with actually what happens, which can be a little bit different or drastically different. And as we know, there was a rash and had continued for quite some time of attacks on pregnancy centers and other organizations afterwards, vandalism, violence, what have you. But the attacks didn't start with Dobbs. I mean, we know that there were other attacks prior as far as just online or public smearing. So, but that kind of really caught everybody's attention because it became so violent and so drastic in those cases. And I think we could probably
widespread.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And to this day, folks are waiting for authorities to hold the proper across the board, hold folks accountable for all of that. So, what normally is the quiet mission of pregnancy help, largely under the radar, serving women, has been in the white hot spotlight for a variety of reasons for my entire tenure, not the least of which are these attacks that continue, such as big tech suppression, legislative and legal threats, and elected officials waging public denigration campaigns. So we continue to follow those, as unfortunate as they are, but we want to inform and equip our centers and the public at large to know what's going on, because pregnancy help is not political in and of itself, but it becomes political by folks who drag it into the political sphere. So, we've stayed with that. That's unfortunately not a happy news cycle, but one that has been the ongoing increase of the lives saved with abortion pill reversal. So I want to say when I started, the total stat was maybe around 900. And as we know, recently we just topped 7,000 for the official statistical number there. And so it's just been a joy to follow that and celebrate it. But then also each and every single individual APR mom story that we have the blessing to tell is a magnification of that, because it brings home the human component of it. So we are blessed that we have those a little bit more at our access than the average bear, since we run the APRN, but that those have been ongoing as well. And I would consider every life saved a milestone as well.
Yeah. Well, we love to count the big number, but you're right. Every life is itself a big thing, and we celebrate each one. Now, you mentioned about APR that led Heartbeat down a certain path. Of course, we're grateful that Pregnancy Help News is the outlet that it is. And we're grateful when we can learn stories that are developing and follow up on them. And then sometimes the story kind of makes itself and lands in your lap. And Andrea, you were the first, as I recall, to learn that Heartbeat was actually being sued by the state of California. You want to give us a little of that story of behind the scenes?
Yeah, that was an interesting morning here at Heartbeat. We were just finishing up a standard monthly meeting that we have, and I got a media request in regard to an embargoed press conference that was about to happen about us being sued by the Attorney General in California, A.G. Bonta. And I remember hustling very quickly across the office next door to your office and be like, do you know that we're being sued? And then our attorney, do you know that we're being sued? And so we started to look into things, and that was actually the tell that this was going to be happening. So we found the press conference and was able to discover some more information. We didn't actually receive the information that we were getting sued, if I recall correctly, for about another week and a half with all of the details in there. But we were able to kind of be in tune to this press conference that was going, the massive public awareness campaign that went throughout California and to the major news outlets, of course, telling one side of the story where A.G. Bonta was essentially saying that we were promoting APR, which we were, because it was helpful to save lives. And by promoting, we had a website that told women about it. And they deemed that to be disinformation and misinformation. And therefore, Heartbeat International and the Abortion Pill Rescue Network should not be able to have the website or talk about APR in any way. Of course, this is something that we took head on, because we will fight this, because women deserve to have that opportunity and that second chance to save her child's life. And we, as Lisa noted, we have been following the statistics and reporting on them over the years. So it is a challenge that we are happy to face head on. And I need to note this because it is important. It is fascinating to me that in this case and one that followed in New York, it mirrors it very, very well. They are not suing to halt Heartbeat International and the Abortion Pill Rescue Network from providing abortion pill reversal, but rather from talking about it. So it truly is a censorship lawsuit that we are in the midst of and will continue to fight, because every woman and every man, because we have a lot of families who are involved in these APR stories, they have the right to try to save their baby.
So that was something the reporter was asking, do we have anything to say about something we didn't know about? Because the reporter knew more information. The Attorney General of California was so kind to make sure that the press was well aware of what was happening, but not the one that they were actually suing. So we're in the throes of that lawsuit still to this day. That was almost 2 years ago now. But something interesting happened that weekend that we did get to report about, because A.G. Bonta had that press conference that you mentioned, and something exciting happened in the wake of that conference. Lisa, I think you reported on that as well.
That would be the numbers coming into the APRN because of rose because of awareness being raised by the AG's press conference. So thank you very much, AG Bonta, for that free PR.
Yeah, they tripled that weekend, and we were very excited. We got to help 3 times as many women thanks to that particular press conference. And so Pregnancy Help News really played a critical part in that. Once that got launched, of course, the other side is trying to really diminish what we're accomplishing through APR. But Pregnancy Help News is really continuing to report on that. And I'm so grateful for your work, Lisa, and the other writers who've been a part of that, making that happen. We moved out of that moment in September and in those early stages of dealing with the state of California. And then as we do in the spring, we assembled in Salt Lake City, and we had another exciting moment that happened that was there that we got to report about. Lisa, you were much more involved in that process in the early moments as much as Andrea was in the beginning of California.
Well, you never know where you're going to be when you learn that you're getting sued, depending on the circumstances, and depending on how you're notified of being sued. But as Providence would have it, a lot of folks were gathered together in person there for our conference, and that enabled some conversations to happen for planning that wouldn't have otherwise been able to happen, or certainly to happen to the degree and extent that they were. So it was really very helpful. Obviously, I'm not going to speak for the legal team or anything, but it enabled our team, if you would, be able to respond expediently and effectively in a way that perhaps we might not have been able to. Because you would think, oh no, conference, our biggest event of the year, that this can't come at a worse time. Well, in that moment, it really kind of couldn't have come at a better time, some would say.
Yeah, in fact, there was what you alluded to is there was one table that had all of the national legal representation there, had several other public interest law firms that support pro-life efforts were at that same table, and they caught wind of the fact that the Attorney General James of New York was planning to sue, and there was a 5-day window, and out of that meeting on a Wednesday. We were able to launch a lawsuit against Attorney General James on Tuesday. So that they worked the legal team at Thomas More Society worked throughout the weekend working on some of those strategies that came up, and so we're able to turn around and instead of waiting to be sued, we're able to sue and to really present our case much quicker than we might have done otherwise if it weren't for the fact that it landed during our conference. So we had other things on our plate that we wanted to do, but we were happy to have that opportunity. And again, we're happy to defend it and grateful for Pregnancy Help News kind of always being that voice of reason and truth in the face of such challenging accusations by whether they come from attorneys general or others. There are those that are just driven by an agenda against abortion pill reversal, and we, of course, stand for that and are looking to fight that. Now, as we moved out of that, we continue to have these gifts that keep on giving in the form of lawsuits and more things that are happening. We have a number of lawsuits. Our friends at NIFLA are fighting. They're in. We see Colorado was a big story of trying to outlaw APR, also embroiled in a lawsuit. It's unfortunate that the other side is so aggressive for their ideology against people choosing life, but this is where we find ourselves. And as we've grown this through various ways, we've had many other people reprinting us, which has become really fun. Lisa, it's like I knew we had arrived at Pregnancy Help News. Like I was reading some other news outlet, and I'm like, oh, this is a great story of pregnancy help. It's like I wonder who wrote it. Oh, this was originally in Pregnancy Help News, and that's happened to me like dozens of times. It's just the fact that our information is not just in Pregnancy Help News, but getting really traction far and wide.
Right. And I've seen that happen with our original content, but also, we rely on reprints because we can't be everywhere at once. I see that other outlets will follow our lead as far as even whom we choose to reprint from. All of a sudden, they're reprinting from a little bit more obscure outlet that I've discovered a great article in and that sort of thing. So it is kind of unofficial, but de facto, a lead that Pregnancy Help News has taken in that regard, which, we'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's exciting to let's talk about where Pregnancy Help News is now. So we have had a number of people that have subscribed to it. Originally, we sent it out to as many folks as we could and encourage people you're going to want to get this digest. And I was telling the guys in part one that one of my favorite things. I was just visiting a center, not far away from where our next conference is going to be. And I was talking to board members, and I'm always kind of questioning like how dialed in is our board members, because it makes sense when the ED is that's common, and it should be more common than it is, but it's not always common amongst board members. And I said, "Are you familiar with Pregnancy Help News?" And the board chair said, "Oh, absolutely. I grab my cup of coffee every Sunday and sit down with Pregnancy Help News." And it's like, boy, that just warms my heart that they're taking that effort to be aware, to absorb what the information is in there, to scan through and pick up those articles that are most interesting to them. Every person in the pregnancy help movement should be a part of that. And we started out with I think just a couple of thousand from our original mailing list, but we have grown a bit over that. Lisa, you want to tell us where we are currently?
We are just under 29,000 subscribers as we speak today, well on our way to 30,000. And that is part of an initiative going on right now with the celebration of our 10-year anniversary. We are inviting folks to help get us over that 30,000 mark. And we really feel the momentum. We really feel confident that that's going to happen.
Well, and I'm going to add to that. So, what you're talking about in particular is our news weekly digest. And so that comes out every Sunday morning, and it's a recap of all the news that has been done in the week before. So it is a beautiful way to just kind of recap what has been happening. It has a variety of topics. It changes week to week, but there's typically stories of hope and encouragement from the movement, from pregnancy help organizations in and of themselves. Those APR stories are in there. And then there are some political stories when for the past several months, there's been many political stories. So there tends to be a political category in addition to that international aspect, because we're watching pregnancy help not only here in the States, but worldwide, because there's a lot of things going on depending upon where you are in the world and how drastically the culture has been shifting. That impacts the pregnancy help organizations overseas as well. So we are definitely tapped into that. So this Sunday morning, I do the same thing, actually, and I already review the preview like on Thursday and Friday. But I go through and I have my cup of coffee, I have my chair, and I go through it as well because it is such a good just recap and understanding as to where the movement is. What should I be aware of? It's not only heartbeat stuff by any stretch. It is movement wide. And it really helps to kind of just stay in the know as to what's happening. So the 30,000 subscribers that we're looking to get to is for that Sunday morning outreach. Of course, you can get it in real time any day at pregnancyhelpnews.com. But yeah, that subscriber list is for that special digest.
You see the web traffic.
But yeah, I'm an analytics nerd there.
So let's see here. That Sunday morning digest then also gives another bump on Mondays because some folks wait till Monday to look at it. And we really, really work to have a comprehensive but also succinct snapshot of the news that happened over the last week, because we understand that folks working in pregnancy help don't have a lot of time and they're running to serve those women. So we do what we can to get that information in front of them and hope for the best that they've been available to see it and that they take it in and that it touches lives. I want to share one of my most favorite examples of feedback is to the digest, because folks can reply to the digest or they can reply to individual stories almost weekly without fail. An example of our good devoted readership, because we do have very engaged readership no matter what the numbers have been. A pregnancy help organization in South Africa replies weekly to the digest and simply says, "Thanks for the information." And that to me is one of the most meaningful things. They're reading it and they appreciate it, and they're all the way over there in South Africa. And I always tell them, "You are welcome," with a big fat exclamation point, because I appreciate that they took the time to reach out to us. So absolutely, that we are international and we are doing all we can to make folks, no matter where they are, aware of what's going on in pregnancy help.
We were just discussing this. We had some leaders that were gathered together just this week, actually, and we were talking about how things that the political dynamics certainly are of interest to our friends around the globe. Like it shocks me how many people in other countries know like the law that was Roe v. Wade, when I can't name a single law that they have in their country, but they're very acquainted with our law. And so even posting these stories that we do, and to hear that feedback from South Africa and so many other countries, they draw energy, they draw hope, they draw even the belief that things can be different in their own country when they see it happening in the U.S. And so it's a way for us to continue to promote that message that pregnancy help is important everywhere, and that we need to continually build a culture for life. And that's kind of the undercurrent of pregnancy help news all the time. So grateful for that. Andrea, any other feedback that you have heard that you are especially appreciative of?
I do love the fact that our internationals tap in, because then they send us their press releases and email updates. So it keeps us engaged, and then we can learn whether or not we want to tap into that as a lead or actually connect with them. Sometimes we just reprint their information because it's that on the ground journalism that is happening around the world, which is lovely. And we have been able to grow, as Lisa mentioned, a variety of writers with their interests being in different areas, to where we just recently actually added an analysis element to the Pregnancy Help News website, because we definitely had our news and commentary. We had some feature articles, but there have been some wonderful research reports being put out more and more from our friends at Charlotte Lozier Institute, as well as the Ethics and Public Policy Center that has been putting out information about mifepristone and other elements that we want our people to be engaged in, and we need to be in the know of as well. So it's been fun to just watch all the ways that we've been able to grow recently, not the least of which is tapping into the Pregnancy Help podcast with the Pregnancy Help News Brief each month.
Yeah, Christine mentioned that earlier. That's newer. That's newer for us, and Lisa's been very kind to do that. Kind of give us a verbal digest, so that goes along with the written digest, and so that's certainly something that you'll want to be as part of this particular podcast. We're grateful for Lisa to kind of pull that together for us in a very bite-sized way. Grateful that she does that.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be able to boil that stuff down, because it packages it differently further for folks who may or may not have the time to sit and read things. So it's great to be able to do that.
Yeah. Give me a sense. I know we've received submissions of people, certainly the writers on the, that are on the Pregnancy Help News team. Give me a sense of like what kind of reach does one typical Pregnancy Help News article have?
It can vary, but certainly well into the hundreds as a base. But we regularly have articles individually reaching 1,000 or more, and into the multi-thousands. And we try to watch that to see what's really touching with people. And there are other avenues and aspects that can affect that. Like if a particular writer has a social media following, we expect that they're going to share their articles, or if we've reprinted something from another outlet, they're going to share it as well. But the benchmark that I have for something that's really hitting people is 1,000, and we regularly go over that.
Nice.
And it's been fun to watch the number of articles increase that has been over that 1,000 mark easily. And we have found that sometimes the political ones and the APR ones hit the heartstrings or a nerve, depending upon which angle you're looking at. And those tend to do very, very well in the thousands.
Well, APR would be many of the APR client stories that you're talking about as well. So it's not all like, the rough and tumble news items or political items, but it's also those heartwarming stories. And I think we have those in spades as far as the pregnancy help movement is concerned. So those are things. What I found really awesome is to watch one of the centers that has come to Babies Go to Congress and gotten great pictures of a very unique event for them, to have one of their clients in the congressman's office or the senator's office, to catch that moment where the congressman is holding their baby that was a client in a center, and then turn around. All of those are great things, and we capture those moments, and I'm grateful to be a part of that. But then we write on them, and then we put them in Pregnancy Help News, and then to see them turn around and get traction on that for their own community, that is good thinking, good planning, and good opportunities really to get the message far beyond their own community.
I am so glad you brought that up, because Babies Go to Congress, other than just being a wonderful initiative on the part of Heartbeat, it's one of the best ways to capitalize on the blessing of pregnancy help and get it out there. Because in addition to accompanying these courageous moms who choose life for their children and travel with us to Washington, D.C. to share their stories with federal lawmakers, and then amplifying those stories through Pregnancy Help News, it's also been very rewarding as the journalist to witness the congressional leaders and staff who are by definition pro-life, but still would benefit from education on pregnancy help. I've seen it every time we've gone there. I'm pro-life, and they welcome us in. But when you start talking about the nuts and bolts and the logistics of delivering pregnancy help and the blessing, and that very real human, again, sitting in front of them and their child who has benefited, I've seen the light bulb go on more than once, where they're like, wait, you do this? Wait, oh my goodness. It's the perfect mining field, if you will. It's a very important initiative to the Senate. And I love that we get to, have a hand in reporting it, bringing it to the world, because like you say, then they go home and tell their stories that look what we did on Capitol Hill. It's just the fruits are beneficial in all directions. It's poignant and pertinent to fostering pregnancy help at the same time.
Love it. And it's one of the ways Pregnancy Help News has been able to amplify messages, that story. And often we're looking for things that are news items, right? And it is a news item when their clients are on Capitol Hill. Like that itself is great. Carly goes to Capitol Hill, or whatever the mom's name is or the baby's name is. Like, those are great stories to tell. We're happy to reflect them. You guys have been amazing. Any last thoughts you want to share about Pregnancy Help News?
Just keep subscribing, keep reading, sending us story ideas, and we love what we're doing.
Yeah, it's such a wonderful opportunity to be able to share the story of pregnancy help, both from the beautiful, we call them kind of evergreen, timeless stories that we are able to see throughout the movement day in and day out, and amplify that message to those who may not be aware of pregnancy help, but then also pairing it with those breaking news items. But we love the ability to really balance that, to be able to communicate the urgent along with the timeless, because it is life-saving and beautiful.
I find myself in several meetings where I hear people say, people that are pro-lifers say, if only we had a place where the good stories are being told. I'm like, let me help you out. Pregnancyhelpnews.com is where you want to be connected with, because yeah, there are other stories, but there are always good stories about what's happening in pregnancy help, and we are grateful to do it. Thank you both.
Thank you all so much. And I know we've mentioned this website many times throughout the episode, but head on over to pregnancyhelpnews.com, subscribe for those weekly updates, get us over that milestone mark, and share with your friends, because again, like we've said so many times, this is such a wonderful opportunity to get the story of pregnancy help out there. And we are grateful for all of the coverage that Pregnancy Help News has had over the years. And while you're subscribing to that, subscribe to this podcast as well, because we have those Pregnancy Help News Brief monthly episodes, in addition to so many other topics that are covered in Pregnancy Help here on the podcast. So you can read, you can listen. We're just sending you so much information so that you can stay up to date on all of the news affecting the pregnancy help world. So with that, we wish you all a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Pregnancy Help Podcast.